Hi guys, Natalie here for Only One United. A big show, big guest, one that I've had in the making for a while, and I'm so excited. I just want to run us through the panel. So Moyo to the right of me, or whichever way it is on your screen. She's from Gold Diggers, and I've heard her a lot on the Guardian podcast. So thank you so much for coming on. Do you want to tell people a bit about yourself?
So I'm part of Gold Diggers podcast, and I was also part of like BCom's alumni last year. Through that, I've had like quite a few opportunities to do things with different like brands and teams, which has been good. Really big fan of the women's game and men's game. But yeah, really big fan of the women's game.
I love your points, and that's why I've wanted to get you on. So I'm glad you're coming on now. Obviously, everyone knows below me, Mia. Mia, thanks for coming on again. I really appreciate you coming on, and there's a big spot in this for you because I want to know about how everyone's feeling. I'm telling you, no pressure, but yeah.
No pressure, no pressure. Yeah. Then I'm honored to be here, if that's the case.
Yeah, no, definitely. And then everyone's favourite tier 1 transfer guru, like Fabio in the men's game, Emma Sanders. That's the one for me. So thanks for coming on, Emma.
No, thanks for having me on. Good evening, everyone. Nice to speak to you all. And hope everyone's well. By the way, that intro music's got me really pumped. That was quite
good, man. It's good. Let's go. I'm not the queen of that. I don't know how to do any of that. I just press the button and press go. But yeah, it gets you ready. Thanks everyone for joining. Everyone's in. You're not missed much. We're starting now. The first place that you can start on a transfer show for me has to be Alessia Russo. Vicky saying you're relieved the Emma's that the window. Yeah. Well, listen, less of that. Alessia Russo. She stayed at Man United. 2 massive bids from Arsenal, both world records. We've heard that one was Stina Blackstenius. I know Jonas has come out and denied it, but for me, I don't know why. I know a lot of people have been saying, it's made up, but I mean, I'm sure Emma will vouch for people. And, for me, I don't think 2 credible journalists sit there and think, I'm going to make this up. For me, I think it's quite legit. I mean, I know we'll get onto it with Mia. But yeah, Moyo, just Alessia Russo, Arsenal, she didn't go. She stayed at Man United. What do you think that means? What do you think it means, I suppose, for the women's game, for Man United and for Arsenal, when you heard the bid and just the fact that it's rejected, etc.?
Yeah, I think for me, like, hearing that the bid was rejected, I feel like it was a big show of confidence from United to say that they're committed to whatever's going to happen this season. So whether that be, I don't know, finishing in the top 3, whether that be going for a trophy, they're committed to at least seeing out the idea or the project of this season. And I think as well, the money that was spoken about, I think it just shows once again that like the investment level is just increasing in the women's game. But yeah, I'd say that the wider picture would just be that the fact that it was rejected. So like, yeah, the fact that United said no, but also the fact that Arsenal attempted to do it. Like, I feel like when you think about it, it's quite unheard of that like you try to take like one of your closest competitors, best, like one of their most important players mid-season. But I guess that is part of, sometimes bits of the women's game seem a bit monopolized in the sense that like there's sometimes a bit of talent hoarding and things like that. But yeah, I guess it was a shock that they actually did it. But I'm glad that United stood firm in terms of saying no. Because I feel like it would have sent a really I feel like it would have sent the wrong message to the team itself, not just the football world. I feel like to the team itself, it would have kind of shown that like they're not committed to whatever's happening right now.
Yeah, 100%. I mean, Emma, just back at you. I mean, you're the guru. You're the person I'd come to. So I'm going to hit you with some things. A lot of Arsenal fans seem confident, though, that it means that she's going to come to Arsenal. And I don't know, because for me, I think when the Kira Walsh one came out, we know Kira was pushing. And I don't know if you know if Leslie was pushing, but it seemed to me I was nervous because, it's big money. But, and Mark had said previously, everyone had a price with what happened with Jackie at the end of the summer. It was, these things were unnerving me, but I always thought, like when Moyo said, they were committed to it. We're at the top of the league. I know we might not finish there, but, the way that we've been talking this season, everyone pushing together, and this season is different, and they're building from the pain of last year. And if she had gone, if they had done it, it would have been a real, kick to what we're doing. Really kick in the teeth to the fans, the players currently. Potentially to everything that they're saying they want to be. So obviously, when you heard it and you were seeing the offers coming through, what was your thoughts when they were happening and when it happened? Like, what did you think?
Yeah, well, I think it's a similar situation with when Miedema was deciding whether or not to sign a new contract. I don't think it was a case of her ever wanting necessarily to leave Arsenal. It wasn't that she wasn't happy at Arsenal. It's because she's obviously got ambitions to do things in football. And, we all know that football's only a short career. Anything can happen. You can have a big injury and that's it. You might not come back from it. So someone of like Alessia's talents, obviously off the back of a brilliant Euros, and she's carried that form into this season, it's only natural for her to want to win trophies and want to play at big clubs. And, if that is the case, and I've said that for a reason, so you can make your own mind up about that, then, I think it's absolutely fair for her to kind of want to go and win trophies. So, look, her contract obviously runs out in the summer. Everyone knows she can leave for free. When the bids came in from Arsenal, the first one, when I heard of that, and I thought straight away, there's no way that United are going to sell her because, no matter what kind of fans, might want to believe or might not want to believe, like I do strongly believe that United absolutely never had any intention of selling her. That was quite clear from way before even the bid went in. We all know that she's been in a position where she can speak to clubs outside of England for a while now. So, the likes of Lyon and like other clubs, especially from America, which obviously I've reported for a while now, that even after Casey Stoney left, she was keen to bring her in at San Diego. So that's nothing new over there. Those talks have obviously been happening for a while throughout the January transfer window. We all know what football's like. Yes, legally, they can't speak to Alessia herself, but we all know that, clubs can indirectly speak through her, like through agencies, through other people. She'll know what clubs are interested in her, what type of offer she's got. That's not going to be, that's not a secret. Everyone knows that football is sort of a business and it works that way. So she'll know exactly what her offers are going into the summer, and she would have known what her situation was in January. And Man United won't be naive to that. They know that she'll be one of the hottest, products in the market. And, I think the fact that they said no in January shows their ambitions to do well this season. It shows their sort of, desire to not only use the Manchester United brand and the badge and what it stands for. Manchester United, as Mark Skinner said, it's the biggest club in the world, apart from maybe the likes of Real Madrid. So, especially in women's football, they still have that obviously that huge sort of badge in the WSL. So if they can win the league this season, let's say, and, they guarantee Champions League football for next season, then, Alessia might think, okay, well, I've won silverware here. I'm playing European football next year. Maybe I do sign a new contract. You don't know. Situations can change very, very quickly. But certainly, obviously, as it stands at the moment, the likes of Lyon, they can pretty much guarantee silverware. So I'm sure she'll be thinking between now and the summer about what her options are. But that doesn't mean that she wants to leave Manchester United. It just means she'll be thinking about her career and what's best for her. And I'm sure those conversations will carry on. And as the season goes on, she'll have a little bit more of an idea of what situation she'll be in the summer. But no, I at no point when these two bids came in did I think that she would believe in, only because I knew there was no way that Manchester United were going to sell. But do I think she'll leave in the summer at the moment? Yes.
I don't know. I think if they get Champions League and, like you say, win an FA Cup, I mean, anyone coming at any point, I think it'll change. I do think a lot, and it's the same with Honour. I think a lot of it is Champions League, but a lot of it is ambition of the club. I mean, even Mark sort of touching it to you, didn't he, Emma, about, there's things outside of her love of Man United that need to change. And, for me, I think that's winning. That's winning one. That's playing Champions League too. Yeah. That's, I don't know. I don't know if anyone knows or if anyone wants to jump in.
Yeah, it's the combination of all that thing, certainly from my understanding anyway. Yeah. And, certainly this case with Ona, when she was sort of thinking about her options, it's Champions League football, which is massive. All the best players want to play in the biggest club competition in the world, and Champions League is. So that's a huge thing. And obviously winning trophies is obviously another thing. And, it's not that she wants to go for money, but I'm sure You know, when money's being spoken about and amazing facilities, that's obviously going to be a factor as well. I think it's a combination of all of those things. But like I say, you know, Manchester United can show her that over the next 6 months, but they could still win the WSL title. They could still get Champions League football next year, and she still might decide, you know what, actually, I quite fancy Arsenal, I quite fancy Chelsea, or I quite fancy Lyon. Like, it doesn't guarantee her staying. It also doesn't guarantee she goes if they don't win anything. So, but all they can do is almost show her that all of those things are in place, and then it's just up to her to decide from there, I think.
Yeah. I mean, I don't know what you think, Moyo. Just suppose as you, because am I all right saying you're a United fan?
Yeah. You can say
you're on a United podcast. We're amongst friends now. You know, it is that, isn't it? It's about the facilities. It's about, you know, ambition. And I feel like United have been lacking in that. And I mean, I know people will be like, oh, money, because that's the first thing that people think to, innit? Greedy players. That's the first thing. And I'm not saying money isn't a factor like Emma says it. Of course it's a factor. You got to get paid, you know? No one does nothing for free. And especially like football, you can still love Man United. But if X, Y, Z, and then I'm sure half these fans, well, maybe not Liverpool, but if City paid you $2,000 a year, you're gonna move for it. Yeah. Because you need to pay your bills.
Yeah, I think I agree with what Emma was saying as well, in the sense that, like, also if like United win, for example, or like they get into the Champions League. So like, let's say United gets into the Champions League, that could be almost like Alessia could still think to herself, okay, we've achieved what we wanted to achieve, and I would like in achieving that, maybe the next step is logical. Else, like, it might even be more logical if we get it for her to move on. Because I feel like it's half and half in the sense of like, you might be thinking about what her goals were when she entered the club. And for all we know, getting the club to Champions League could be, I've ticked off the goal now and now I can move on. I feel like it just depends on what Emma was saying. So in terms of like what she wants. And I think as well that like it's easy for fans to like, when you're in the bubble of, okay, I support this team, sometimes you can only think about like how it impacts the team you support. But sometimes it's like you do have to like separate yourself from what you're reading or what you're seeing and think, okay, yes, I don't like this for my team, but think about what this will mean for her career in the long run. Like in terms of like building up stars, like especially in women's sports in general, to become a star in women's sports is very difficult. And I feel like there's so many external factors that come into play with that. And I feel like she might be looking at certain opportunities and be thinking about how can I maximize myself as a player, not just in terms of playing, but in terms of how I'm known within the sport. And I feel like that might be another thing she considers. And it may be that she can better do that outside of the club.
I mean, I don't know. Me, I'm going to come on to you. I suppose just touch on everything that everyone said. Do you agree? Do you disagree? And then I want to tell.
I agree with everything, but I can throw two other perspectives into this that I've been thinking about watching the chaos from Sweden. I also think this is about two things. It's about how clubs recruit and the football they play and how to make the players usable for the way they want to play football. I do think players are more aware of that today than they were a couple of years ago. So I do think that they want to be utilized for their absolutely best abilities in order to perform, because we have another factor coming up as well, and that's the fact that every international tournament with the national teams. So they want to play good football. They want to win silverware and they want to make money, because now it's happening in the women's game. So that's one thing, I think. And then the other thing is that even though if United were to end up top 3, Champions League football, it depends on what we're talking about. Is it only the qualification rounds? Because if the players play that, it doesn't guarantee them Champions League football next season. So I think every aspect of this has to be like thrown into the discussion. And what I also think is quite worrying, I must say, is that I heard Jonas Eidevall speaking today about the fact that, okay, it's very hard. Obviously, it's always hard in the January window, but I mean, it can't be just like that they have scouted 4 players when they know that the January window is very, very hard. I mean, there's a lot of good strikers out there just waiting to be signed.
Yeah.
So I think for me, it's a bit weird that you just like get hung up on one player like that.
For me, it's
because
scattergun.
when he said today that, okay, we knew it's hard, but we didn't know how hard it was going to be to get clubs to sell, then I was like, okay, but that's a weird thing for a top team in the WSL to say.
Yeah.
Sort of.
This is why I don't think Arsenal are a big club. Of course they are. They're a big club. Man United a big club. But, I mean, El Don is sort of saying it. It's a bit of a shambles. And that's what I was thinking. When I was hearing Jess Park, then I was hearing this one, then I was hearing Brun, then I was hearing Leslie. And I'm thinking, you're going for players that people are not going to sell. Everyone knew, even I knew, from October that Bruni, she was in the last 6 months, but there's no way they're going to sell her. Hedberg's. So I'm thinking, why are you going for these kind of players? It just did not make sense to me. And I suppose, I mean, we can go on to that point, but I just want to as well touch on the Stina thing. You've admitted you're from Sweden. I know that you've got the link. So, well, everyone knows you're from Sweden.
Yeah,
got the links. So tell us the Stina situation, because we saw from Molly and Anton about that, and other girls come in like after she said. But I just want to know what's your take? What's the take from Sweden? What they're saying about Stina being as part of that deal? It's not going the best for her, is it, really, at Arsenal this season? I remember when she joined, and I was saying, Stina, come to United, and you know how excited we were, and obviously it didn't end up happening, and now I'm sort of sitting back as a fan now, just going, you see, I told you.
I think also here I'm going to be very diplomatic about this, because the fact is that Stina Blackstenius is one of the best strikers in the world if she is being used correctly in a system. And I do think that I do think it's unfortunate for Stina Blackstenius as an individual that Beth Mead is out injured.
Yeah.
I do think that, because the fact is that I watched them play last weekend, and then you could see that she's still one of the best strikers in the game at pressing. You can't have a more hardworking striker like that than Stina Blackstenius in that position. But the players around her is obviously also have to be used the correct way. I don't think she benefits from the fact that a player like Beth Mead is out. I think the wingers, Katie McCabe and Caitlin Ford and Lina Hurtig, they don't provide Stina Blackstenius. Obviously, they are quality world-class players, so I'm not going to defend that. But I do think that that's a part of it in this thing. And then, okay, it was a headline in Sweden yesterday when those headlines came out. I also think that the fact is that if this is true, the way it was reported, then I'm kind of worried for the fact that her confidence might have a bit of a blow now, because now it's full pressure. Because of the way that things played out with this. But also is that I spoke to her agent, I was like, okay, is this even true? And of course he said that it would have been good if someone at the club had known about this, sort of. That was his reply to me.
We love it here, mate. We love it. This is the chaos we live for. Yeah, this is women's football. This is what we want every day. Me and Emma used to talk about it. This is what we love.
I do think that, of course, I don't think that in the late hours of negotiating that Jonas Eidevall was sitting at the table and offering his strikers, because they were out to sign a striker. But I do think that, of course, I can believe that names were thrown around. I don't think it was planned, though. I do think that it could have been a way to see where the limit of Manchester United were. Where was the limit?
Yeah. No, I agree. I mean,
it doesn't make it look better, though.
No.
But yeah,
Yeah. United could have leaked it. United could have leaked it to cause, and that's the chaos we live for. We love it. Yeah. Yeah. Because you say it's going to hit. Go on.
I think it is worth saying that stuff like that actually happens all the time in both men's and women's football. And it is, and it will be for several factors, like Mia says. One will be seeing what the limits are. Another will be seeing, sort of, how far people can sort of bend a little bit in terms of how much they're willing to negotiate. Player swaps all the time. I mean, I think I reported one on transfer deadline day anyway, that at one point when Liverpool got Natasha Dowie on loan from Reading, which obviously came through, Reading were extremely close to getting Rachel Furness, and that was involved in a player swap deal. That fell through actually the day before transfer deadline day. But that was very, very close to getting done. So, it happens all the time. It's not necessarily reported on, because quite a lot of the time conversations are less formal. So the world record bids were obviously formal bids. Conversations like that around, what about if this player or this player, it might be in Blackstenius on loan, not necessarily a permanent. That will be less formal. That will just be a conversation between a representative and perhaps an agent or another representative. Which obviously it doesn't make it less of a thing. I'm just highlighting that it probably happens far more often than I think a lot of people might expect.
No, definitely. They were pushing it. And that's what I think annoys me recently about women's football, that a lot of people are coming out now just because Jonas has said, it never happened. Oh, well, it must not have ever. And I just think, like you say, I'm seeing a lot of things about, they're lying. And I'm thinking, no one cares that deeply about Arsenal or Man United or seeing her to think, let's just make this up in our head. I mean, in my head, I was thinking I can see it. And then when it came out, I thought, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, obviously, I didn't report this, so it's not my information, but I can tell you now for 100%, there's no way two journalists from separate outlets, like mainstream national journalists who are very, very good, get together and have a conversation and discuss it, link their sources together, and then put out something that's completely false. There's no way that that's happened. So obviously, everyone's free to have their own opinions. Mine is that it's strictly not a lie, and that's all I'm saying on that. But yeah, I think there is a bit of a culture sometimes that if you don't like a piece of news, then your instant reaction is to assume that it might be made up. But I don't think that's always the case.
Yeah, I mean, Moyo, what did you think about Arsenal? I know we just talked about it, and then we've talked about Stina, and Mia sort of touched on it about the whole way they approached it. And it didn't, I mean, people are saying in the comments, panic buying, and saying it was like United of a couple of seasons ago and just throwing out money and throwing out names. And I couldn't believe it in the end, but I could, because I was laughing when I was seeing Jess Park and all this. Go on.
It's tricky because everyone they were linked with, they've kind of been linked with in the past. So it wasn't like the names were the names weren't a shock. It was more so the timing, because I think they were linked with Russo when Russo came to United in the first place. And I know that they had mentioned, like, there were reports mentioning Jess Park and Arsenal before she re-signed and went on loan. So I don't think it's necessarily the names that were a shock. It was more so the fact that it's happening in January, and the fact that each party is at a team that can't really afford to give them away. I think it was more so the circumstance. But like, I understand every name that Arsenal was linked with, it did make sense for them. It was more so that the options were quite different. So each option made sense, but the options were very different from each other. So like Jess Park coming in does not bring about the same solutions as Russo coming in, for example, or like Senior Bruin. I feel like they're all kind of different, but I understand why Arsenal would have been looking at players of that ilk. But yeah, it's a tricky one because Arsenal being Arsenal means that they can feel as though they can request whichever players they want, almost, like, especially within the league. So like if you're a player that wants to stay in the WSL and Arsenal come calling or Chelsea come calling, pretty much you go most of the time. Like if you actually think about it, every single player that's had a successful season and they're at a club that's like between 5th and 7th, as soon as Arsenal or Chelsea come or City come, they go. And I feel like that was Arsenal's stance in making those like requests or saying I want to buy this person. It's more so that they do have an aura of being able to get who they want, especially from teams that don't necessarily have their history. But I feel like it comes down to teams that they wanted to buy these players from aren't in a position to sell. So I feel like that's what made it trickier.
Yeah, I think they were after that Chloe Lacasse, weren't they, from Benfica, and ended up bidding $500,000 for Alessia Russo. I don't know, it just did feel a lot like panicking, and it was just very strange. But it's love. We love it. The chaos. This is the chaos. I've seen someone saying Natalie's so excited. Yeah, because even though it's my team, it's what we've always wanted, and seeing that growth in the women's game. And one thing that I am seeing a growth of is loan fees and fees for players going on loan. Emma Sanders touched on that at the end, and we see it in the men's game. It's normal. And now I think she said it's controversial in the women's game, but for me, I don't think it's controversial. I think should be. This is the way we want it to go. We want money to be spent. Man United got a fee for Jade Moore on loan. I think she was linked to Spurs and Leicester. Talk us through like this thing of other players asked for getting loan fees. You know, I know someone saying something about Jess Park, the loan fee would have been 100k, and then someone said no, it was Everton. So, Emma, what do you know about this new controversial thing? But it's where we want it to go, I suppose, isn't it?
Yeah, so I reported the Jess Park basically as part of this kind of very late attempt to try and get a striker. Arsenal had obviously inquired about Jess Park, and they'd actually inquired about obviously, like as people say, for a while, but they did actually reach out a few days before deadline day, and then a little bit more formally on deadline day. And obviously Everton got her on the season on loan, so they said, well, you know, it's basically like us kind of selling a player for 6 months, so we would want 100k. So City basically had to ask for 100k from Arsenal, which they would have then paid Everton to almost cut the loan short, and then Arsenal then would have then had to have had another agreement with City. I'm sure they then would have charged their own loan fee on top of that, and they would have been well within their rights to do that. So it's a new thing. Obviously, I reported about the Jade Moore one, which I know a lot of people raised eyebrows about. I know I spoke to a coach at one club who didn't like the idea of it. I've spoken to another coach who liked the idea of it. Hence why I use the word controversial, because there's some clearly in the league who like it, some who don't. I'm more on the side of I quite like it.
What was the reasoning for not liking it? Sorry, what was the reasoning for not liking it?
So, for example, someone like Lucy Staniforth, who ended up mutually terminating her contract, obviously, with Man United and going to Aston Villa for free. That was a situation where Staniforth she wanted to play regular football. She wasn't really getting that at Man United. Obviously, she wants to get into that England squad. Aston Villa were offering her something good. But if Man United, let's say, had asked Villa for a fee and they weren't willing to pay it, then a player like Lucy Staniforth would have had her hands tied, really, and would have basically stayed at Man United for 6 months, not played any games, not necessarily being overly happy. Like, you know, that's obviously from my point of view, kind of what I've been told. So I guess the controversial side of it is people saying, well, if you've got players that want out at a club and the only option is to kind of mutually terminate their contract and then risk the potential of another club not then signing them, which was a high risk for Jade Moore, for example. So if Jade Moore had done that, if she had mutually terminated her contract with Man United, which I understand was never actually really up for discussion,
Sure.
she was pretty much going to Tottenham. That was all there or thereabouts, kind of formally agreed. And then very late on, it became available that Tottenham could actually get Mana Iwabuchi for a fairly decent price. Obviously a quality player. They then had that discussions with Arsenal, and then kind of very, very quickly moved their target from Jade Moore to Mana Iwabuchi. So if Jade Moore had terminated a contract within that period, she kind of would have been left in limbo. So I guess that's why some people think asking for money for a loan move prevents those kind of opportunities for other players. And obviously the pool of women's footballers is much smaller than the men's. But I'm more on the side that I actually think it's good, because I think generating money for clubs that is then going to get kind of reinvested in the women's game, I think is only a good thing. And if you're getting money from these sort of bigger clubs, as we say, that are coming in and getting that really, really good talent from sort of the 6th, 7th, 8th place teams in the league, and they're then getting some money back for it, I think that's a good thing. Sure. I actually think sort of Everton, let's say that situation with Jess Park, which I'd like, sort of, as I said on the day, was always going to be a bit of a miracle. But let's say that actually did come off. Everton getting 100k, sort of indirectly from Arsenal, I think would have actually been really, really good business for them and the league, because that they would have then spent that money, perhaps in summer. And I doubt they would have spent that really on kind of strikers in the WSL in the top 4. They might have gone elsewhere, or they might have signed like someone like Adriana Leon, for example. They could have paid that 100k to get her on a loan fee and things like that. So I think it sort of goes around the league, but yeah, I think it's just quite a complicated one, and it's quite nuanced in the sense of it'll change per situation and per club. And I think that's why perhaps the understanding of it so far is a little bit muddled. I don't mean that in like people are ignorant, but as in like clubs, I don't think they've quite worked out kind of how to go about it and how to ask fees and how to sort of almost like set the right fee per player and how they work that out. I think that's still something that the women's game is kind of developing at the moment, but it's interesting.
Yeah, I love it. I mean, a lot of people now, since you've talked about Stanley, are now asking the obvious question: why wouldn't you sell them? Why didn't we get a loan fee for her? And I'm coming back to you, Emma, but like for me, it does seem then a bit silly. Like we're talking about terminating one, but then getting a fee for just someone to be on loan, and I want my club, I'm talking but I want, if we're letting someone go, you always want to have money coming in. It happens in the men's game. This is transfer business, you're letting an asset go, and if they've still got, I know it's only 6 months, but if they've still got something on a contract, Jade Moore's got 6 months on a contract, and we got some money, it's not fully gone, and there's no guarantee even when that contract runs out that she's going to stay at Reading beyond the 6 months loan. So it just, people, I think it was good business, the Jade Moore thing, but then people are saying the Stanley thing, terminating it, isn't good business, considering Arsenal sold Nobbs, who's, a legend of the club, that you would think that you would terminate that contract, you know what I mean, if you wanted to sort of let her go. Whereas Stanley, I obviously wanted to play. I'm happy for her. I think she's doing really well, and we'll touch on Stanley a bit more about, how well Villa are doing. But it doesn't. I don't know. Just, everyone can touch on the Stanley thing because we'll come back to it. But Emma, what's the difference between Jade Moore and Lucy Stan, I suppose?
Yeah, no, I agree. I think it was poor business from Man United, 100%. I think it was excellent from Aston Villa to get a player of Lucy Staniforth's quality for free in the January transfer window. Yeah, great business for them. I don't understand Manchester United's decision, to be honest. You don't know what's gone on behind the scenes. Maybe Lucy Staniforth has said, look, my contract runs out in the summer. If you don't let me go now, I'm definitely going to go for free in the summer anyway. It's going to be 6 months where I don't particularly want to be here. You might not particularly want me here. Aston Villa have come in, and it might just be a case of that. We saw it today actually with Liverpool and Rachel Furness. I know for a while they were trying to get a loan move. Like they didn't want to mutually terminate the contract because she still had another 6 months on, and obviously she was in demand. She's a Northern Ireland international. She's shown what she can do, but in the end, it was the best thing for the player. And the club, sort of out of respect for the player, said, you know what, like this is a good opportunity for you. It means we don't have to pay you wages for the next 6 months. Let's just end the contract. you can go and play some football and that's it, and it's all very amicable. So sometimes that is the case, and it might have just been a simple conversation, you don't know. But Lucy Staniforth literally might have just said, look, please let me go. I don't particularly want to be here. And Mark Skinner might have said, well, if you don't want to be here, like, what's the point kind of for everyone? And that literally might be the end of it. But from a business point of view, I thought it was really poor. But and so the answer to your question is there is no difference, I don't think. But
I think as well, that like the club or Mark or both may have felt bad about because she only just signed an extension in summer. I think that he thought he was going to not rotate, because he never really has, but like I do think he thinks he was going to be able to give her more minutes. And I feel like, because I remember in summer people were confused at why she even got an extension initially. That was the initial question, like, oh, we're surprised she's got an extension when she was injured a lot last season. I think it wasn't necessarily to do with the fact that they didn't like her as a player. I think everyone agreed that Staniforth is a really good player, but it was more so about like the availability issues. And I feel like Mark / the club almost preempted injuries, and somehow the club has just been super lucky and hasn't really had injuries. Touch wood. But like the club hasn't really had injuries, and therefore he hasn't really been able to give her the time. And I feel like he knows almost that they've taken the mick a bit, really, to extend and not play her is silly on both parts. So I feel like that also might be part of the reason.
I mean, there might have even been a clause in the contract extension which said, if she played less than a certain number of games, she could be given the option to mutually terminate in January. Like clauses like that can be put into contracts, so it wouldn't be out of the question, I don't think.
Yeah, and what I want to talk, I think definitely there's something about that. She signed a contract and she didn't play, and they felt guilty, or because she actually said something on a podcast. I mean, she did throw some shade, but she did say the club are really good about it. So potentially, I do think there is something in that, what you said, Moyo.
I don't think that Vilde Berisa has that clause in her contract.
No, neither do I. Yeah. And I want to touch on my girl. I love her to death, Vilde, and I want to touch on Lisa, because I saw from Tom, another respected journalist, that they were demanding 150k for Vilde, and I think she's got an extension, club extension, so we have got an extra year in her. And then they brought in Lisa, and maybe there was a case of they wanted Lisa. They knew they were always going to bring in Lisa Nolsson, and they just wanted someone off. So yeah, it's easy. Stanley, she's got the club there. Bam, bam. Lisa come in, because we heard about the Lisa bid before the Stanley move. Mia, talk to me about Lisa, because Moyo talked about rotation and you've talked about Vilde. What's going to happen? What's going to happen? You tell me.
What's going to happen is I think it's quite it's both refreshing and not refreshing to have a national team coach put pressure on players in their own national teams like that when they are about to decide where they're gonna spend their Monday to Friday playing games every week in that. But I do think it's refreshing the other way around that, because she's very straight, she's honest, and if I was Lisa Nolsson, I would really this would have been a hard decision, because I mean, she obviously not going to play until at least March. And if United is about to defend their first spot in the league, if they're top of the table when that day comes, I can't just see Mark Skinner throwing new signings into the onto the pitch when things are obviously working really good. So I do think that the fact is that when Norway played with Martin Sjögren, it was always about Vilde Berisa or Frida Manum. They were in competition to play, especially when Frida Manum was in Linköping. And Vilde was starting at the time when she joined Manchester United. She was a starting player in the national team. Obviously, Martin Sjögren is not there anymore, and he also didn't play her as much at the end. But I can see that it must have been really hard for Lisa Nilsson to take that decision. But she's not she's not a youngster anymore. And then Manchester United comes knocking, saying that we want you here at our club, at our brand, or come to England to play football with us. So I think it's going to be very interesting to see, because she has played a big part in her team back in Norway to win the double. She knows what it's like to win. Often Scandinavian players that comes to the WSL, they know what it takes to win a league title. So it's all about the step. Is the step too big for them to handle to get into a starting 11? But I do think that she has no time to say no. I'll wait another year.
100%.
So I think that's the case with that. But I also think that Vilde Berisa has a lot of talent, and I do think that every top team in every league at the moment has to really stop and think about squad, like when they recruit a squad, because we're not going to be able to, if you have a starting 11 that delivers out on the pitch all the time and it's very even from 1 to 3 in a table, you don't just change the starting 11 even though you have world-class players on the pitch. It doesn't matter. You don't do that, because then you will take a risk when it's so even that you can't do that, and especially in a league that like the WSL.
I mean, I don't know what everyone else thinks, but I've put some comments up. I don't know if you saw them, but I think she does offer a bit different. I don't know what that will be. Not seeing her a lot, but there is this thing of Vicky also saying about the 3.5-year deal, so they obviously do believe in her because they want her here. That she's got the biggest contract next to Tooney, and I don't know obviously what the money is, but that length, that shows for me that she's a player that he's thinking of. But it is that concern for me, because there's stats come out today and it says Man United have made the least changes in the whole of the WSL, only 7. And I think for a big team,
are number 1. They are leading, so that's the thing as well.
They are leading, but 7 changes.
I think people tend to look at the wrong things. I don't think Hege Riise hates Manchester United. But every the last 6 months, with all the injuries going on and the schedules, the national team head coaches get questions like they didn't get these questions 3 years ago. Now they get these questions. Now they have to answer. So they have to give their opinions. And I do think that I saw someone in the comment now making a comment about Ingrid Engen.
Yeah, I was just going to pull that up.
The thing is that since Hege Riise took over, Ingrid Engen has been having more playing time in Barcelona. So you can't say that, because she's playing. She's actually playing quite much. But she didn't when Martin Sjögren was in charge.
Yeah, she is actually. Yeah. People do, I think, look at start. She might not be starting, but she's coming on, and when she does,
she's playing a lot more than she was last season.
Yeah. Playing a lot more than Vilde.
She starts games.
Yeah, she's starting to start more, isn't she?
And they have a plan for her if they're going to keep her. You can hear her. You can hear that when she talks. She's probably going to end up next to Mappé Leon as a centre back. So,
yeah, I think you've also got to look at the squads that they're in as well. I mean, you could be playing every game for Leicester City, the bottom of the WSL, or you could be coming on and making 20 minutes every week for Manchester United, and 9 times out of 10, that's more beneficial to be playing 20 minutes for Manchester United because of the quality of the players that you're training and you're working and you're learning off every day in training throughout the rest of the week. So I do think there is too much focus on kind of starting every week sometimes. It varies depending on what stage of your career that you're at. Obviously, a young player like Ruben Mace, for example, leaving Man City on loan to Leicester City, brilliant. She gets play. She's playing. She's 19 years old. But it is different for players that are in a different sort of situation in their career. But I do think you can't look past the fact that, someone like Engen, for example, is literally at Barcelona, like playing alongside Bonmati, etc. every week. So it is different.
I mean, Moyo, something that I see you talk about a lot is the rotation. People said it's not even the rotation, it's the squad management, Is he managing that squad? Because we see him bringing on people for like 10 minutes and 15 minutes, and you're thinking, maybe make a change at, you're 3-0 up against, Emma, but 3-0 up against Liverpool, make us change at half-time. Even against Reading, make a change at half-time.
Yeah.
And, people are
The
saying,
The Reading game was super frustrating. The Reading game was probably the most frustrating game I've watched this season. I get both sides to an extent. So that I get wanting to rock the boat in terms of it's a formula that is winning. But I get also what you're saying, that in the sense that like in terms of the long-term view of the squad as a whole, as opposed to that, okay, this is my starting 11. In terms of the long-term view, I'm just looking at it as though like if I'm a player in the squad and I only play Conti Cup games, for example, and I know that regardless of how I play in this Conti Cup game, I'm definitely still not starting. I feel like for morale, it's difficult. So even if I use the example of like when Vilda scored a brace, I think against Everton, Conti Cup, and I was just thinking, yeah, she like irrespective of this, she's still not starting. We saw similar last season with Ivana Fuso, like she would do well in the Conti Cup, but like still get no starts. And I feel like I get it to an extent that you want to keep consistency in the league. You want to keep consistency in terms of the starting 11s you're playing. But I do feel like for morale, it's a fine line to start making the team feel like an A team and a B team. I feel like at times when you only play in cups, you start feeling like the B team. Like you start feeling like you're playing to give the A team a rest, as opposed to you're playing because you deserve to play. And I feel like it also doesn't help when so like for example, if you only play in the cups and you therefore only play like once every 2 weeks or once every I don't know what, I feel like it's difficult to get match rhythm. And I also feel like their lack of match rhythm is then held against them when they don't perform when they come on. So it's almost like it's like a never-ending cycle. You play once every 2 weeks, so you don't have much rhythm. Therefore, when you come on in the WSL games for like 10 minutes, you can't really impact the game because the last time you played was like 14 days ago. And therefore, that's then used as the reason to not start the next WSL game. So it's just like it's a constant cycle of that almost. And I feel like it's tricky to maintain a squad because let's say, for example, God forbid, an injury does happen in the squad. One of those players is coming into the starting lineup, and now you're going to have to go through that whole cycle again of having to get them up to speed of match rhythm. But yeah, that's where I stand. But I also get why Mark Skinner wants to keep the consistency. And it's not just Mark Skinner, to be fair. It's other coaches as well. Like a lot of other coaches do it as well, but it goes under the radar. I'd probably say outside of Emma Hayes, all the coaches don't rotate. Emma Hayes probably is the only coach that rotates in the league. But hers almost, you could argue, let me think of how to phrase this. Hers almost is because she knows that regardless of who she picks, the team is in the habit of winning. Chelsea has a habit of winning. So whoever comes in, if she makes a change here or there, the team is still going to win. I feel like most of the other coaches in the league, if not all, feel as though the changes will impact the likeliness of winning. Whereas Emma Hayes doesn't think like that because she thinks I've got so many winners on my bench, I can call anyone. But yeah, that's where I stand at least.
I actually agree with like a lot. Yeah, I do agree with a lot of what you said there. I thought like the sort of the A team and the B team, I thought was a really good way of putting it. We see it quite a lot in the men's game. This like managers like Jurgen Klopp, Pep Guardiola, for example, like they hate big squads. Like they've come out and said like we hate big squads, because I actually think it's one of the hardest things in football management. Coaching is obviously a different thing, but football management is getting a squad, because you have to go far in cup competitions and you have to compete in lots of games to be in order to have a squad that's available and that rotates all the time. But you can't get to that point without buying a squad in the first place to improve the starting 11, etc. So there's actually a comment from El Don. I don't know whether you can bring it up, Nat. 748. Yeah, this one about the lack of games. I think that's a really good point, because I think that's where the women's game is at that kind of transition at the moment, where you have Chelsea's a great example because they've won stuff relentlessly. So they've been able to go out and get a squad because they're always in the cup finals, they're always in the last stages. So Emma Hayes can obviously rotate, and then now, as you say, she's at a position where she's got starting players on her bench, so she can do it every week. But they had to play lots and lots of games, and Gareth Taylor actually speaks about this a hell of a lot. Man City, pretty much every Man City presser, he brings it up in one answer about the fact that he loves weeks where they have 3 games in 1 week, because he likes a big squad. He's obviously got a big squad, and part of his problem, and that was why there was a bit of an exodus in the summer, is players like Caroline Weir, for example, wasn't playing. She wanted to be playing every week. He wants players like that on the bench. But City, because they didn't qualify for the Champions League and obviously got knocked out of the qualification stages, meant that they weren't playing enough games, and that's a problem. So it's a catch-22 in the women's game at the moment. I think until you start having more games and there's more competitions, as much as we talk about player welfare, and I 100% agree with it, while the players are now sort of at that level now where they're actually professional and they're playing every week, and you look at the women's game compared to the men's game, and the schedules completely different. And yes, like player welfare is a problem, but it's only because females they're not used to playing three games in a week. But at some point, perhaps they will do, because there'll be a squad big enough where they're rotating, so the actual individuals aren't playing 3 games a week. But I think it'll need time to get there. But I do think that is a big problem. And obviously that's what Mark Skinner's spoken about. And that was why, like, from my understanding, obviously lots of clubs were interested in like Adriana Leon in the January transfer window, and Man United had absolutely no intention to let her go, because they want her as part of the squad. They think she's a really, really valuable squad member. She's obviously come on and had impacts in games. She wants to go and play. Like, there's a World Cup coming up. She wants to play. It's a catch-22, and I think it's a problem, isn't it? But I do think there's lots of factors in it, and I think that's one of them for sure, is that there's not enough games, which I know might be controversial. I think there's a lot of international games. I don't think there's many club games.
Yeah.
And then you look at other leagues, like where they play more games. So I think the whole thing about equality between men's and women's football, it should be equality in the women's football first. We need to start like where we are. So because we can say what we want about Liga F, but if you play games and you play 2-3 games a week, then you get playing time, and then when you are going to go out to play in the big competitions like the Champions League, you are match trained, you are there. And like, if you look at the team, we'll take Barcelona for example now, because I think the rotation in that squad this season, we see it more now than we did the last season. They are trying and practicing how to squad rotate, how to use the squad. Where are the limits for that? When does the performance drop? When I sub these players in to play in the next game, and so on and so on.
Yeah, man. I think
I agree.
I love League F. I think I've always said, Spanish League, they don't talk about it enough, and it's disrespected. And I think it's disrespected because Barcelona are doing so well. But I think we need to look at it in terms of Barcelona are just like the best team. We know how Barcelona men's team tore Man United apart. Barcelona women's team have torn Chelsea, City, Arsenal. So Barcelona are just like that standalone kind of thing. But then I feel like what you said, then when they played Lyon in the last final, I think that's why they brought in more players, because potentially some of their players weren't at the level. But I still feel like Barca probably will go on and win the Champions League. That's what I think. But they were poor versus Bayern, and Bayern have come on, and I think if Bayern of Germany got 12 teams, or is it more? I don't know. But I do think there needs to be, in my opinion, as soon as possible, an increase in the WSL teams, in my opinion.
Yeah.
I think it's also interesting because I can't remember who I spoke to this about. I think it was a player, actually, that you speak about the English teams and the Champions League, which we love, because that's also drama and chaos all the time. But the fact is that this player, I can't remember who it was now, but the thought was, in fact, that they had so many tough games compared, obviously, to other teams playing in the Champions League, that when you go into the Champions League, there's a lot of factors to it when you have played tough games. But then I spoke to René Slegec, who is coaching FC Rosengård in the Damallsvenskan, and obviously they were very disappointed about the Champions League this season. But we also have to be realistic. They had played a full season. There was a Euros in the summer, where a lot of players in the top team are with the national team. They come back, they play the second half of the season. There's a 1 month gap before the Champions League starts. But then our season is off. We don't play football. So you're tired because it's been a long season and so on and so on. So we don't have equality across women's football in every league when going in to play competition, when we're going to compete against each other.
Yeah, no, I agree. James saying Bundesliga's got 12, but I don't. I mean, this is I suppose its own big nuanced debate, and we can get into it. But I just want to bring it back. We were talking about City and Gareth Taylor, and we've touched on Villa and stuff, and we touched on Everton, and well, West Ham did a bit of business, didn't they, at the end? But City didn't do much business, and I was a bit surprised at that, because I watched the Villa did great business, but I watched the Villa versus City game, and it was 1-1. And for me, I was shocked at how, I don't know, maybe his Villa were really good, but City, I just was a bit like, wow, I didn't realise this is where you're at now. And I just feel like Villa dominated them in the middle. Jordan Nobbs and Stanny, they were just, well, Stanny especially, and we're talking about playing games, and she's playing games and she's looking like player of the match both times that they've played. And it's mad for me that City are, well, they are in that top 3 race. Of course, they are Bunny Shaw, but I feel like if Bunny Shaw don't score or, or create like she did for Dana, and they kept Bunny Shaw quiet, and then that was it, bang, 1-1. And I suppose Emma, Moyo, Mia, whoever wants to come in, Villa have done great business. And I think now we're seeing like teams like, Everton, I know they took them close, City. And just your thoughts on City so far, the business that they did do, and the fact that they didn't do much in January. Would you expect them to do more? I don't know.
I wasn't surprised in the side.
Same.
I mean, do I think they needed to do business? Probably yes. But I wasn't surprised at all. I didn't expect a single thing really to happen at City, because I think Gareth Taylor, whether you disagree with it or you don't, he was very clear in the summer that they were in this transition. They were bringing players in, and he saw it as a long-term project. I think some of them have worked. I think some of them haven't. I think like Kirsten Kasparov, for example, I think she's been really, really good. They've got the best out of Bunny Shaw this season, which obviously they didn't last season. Obviously, Ellen White sort of not playing has obviously helped her out. I do think Lauren Hemp's going through a run of poor form. Chloe Kelly, I think, is obviously still coming back from that ACL injury. I do think she's creating a lot, but she's not scoring, which I did actually ask Gareth Taylor about this week, and he wasn't concerned by that. I think I would be, but that's a different matter. So I think there's a couple of factors. But yeah, I definitely wasn't surprised that they didn't do anything, because I think he's seeing this as he's brought those new players in, and he wants to give them time to develop. So I think they'll make some moves in the summer, mainly because I think they might react to other clubs, because I think Chelsea are going to be extremely active in the summer. And I think there's going to be some big movements in the WSL, which City are going to have to react to. In an ideal world, I think he'd want things to be fairly quiet so he can sort of use this group of players that he's just brought in. But I do think City will make moves in the summer. So yeah, I wasn't surprised at all.
For me, that I'm not saying that but when you just said they'll be quiet and they can just work. For me, I don't know. For me, I think you should be constantly involving your squad. You should be constantly bringing people in, getting people out. That's how you build a squad, by getting in players that are better than your first team, and then your first team becomes. That's how I see it. 2 players for every position. And I suppose, Moyo, what do you think? I suppose about City and the business that they did in the summer and the fact that they were quiet. And I know you said you agree. You expected them to be quiet, but
yeah.
I think what Emma was saying, like they'll only react when
they
other
had
teams
to be.
react.
They had to be quiet because they're not in it. Like right now, they did a lot of business in summer. Some of the people that they brought in summer still haven't actually even gotten that much game time yet. Like, so if we look at someone like Mary Fowler, for example, outside of the cup, she's not really gotten much game time. Dana started getting bits of game time now, but that's even mainly in like the number 10-ish position. I think the fact that they're out Champions League probably impacted their thoughts of what they want to do in January. So, like for example, if they were in another competition, be it the Champions League, I think they would have to think about expanding their squad, just because then the physical demand on players would be higher. But right now, I feel like their squad is big enough to navigate the cups and the league that they're in. Because as we said, there's not that many league games, plus cups. Like I was speaking about with someone the other day that like Chelsea, for example, could win 2 Conti Cup games and they're going to be in the final. Like that's how short certain cups can be. So I feel like I'm not really that surprised they didn't do business. And like Emma, I probably expect them to do a lot of business in summer. And I feel like especially by then they'll be able to figure out how well the signings they made last summer did. Like they'll be able to make they'll be able to make a better decision on whether they've worked or not worked and how they're going to complement or like move pieces around. I feel like if they'd have done business in January, it would have messed up almost their long-term plan. And I do see their long-term plan because I saw a trend in the people that they were buying in summer. Like I was like, okay, yeah, this person makes sense with this person. There are a lot of links between the people they brought in summer, whether that be style of play or what the clubs that they've come from previously. But yeah, I feel like right now they're probably on track for what they wanted to do. Yeah.
I'm gonna touch, if everyone's okay, on the bottom of the table as well. And I'll touch on some questions that I can see. But Leicester, they did a lot of business. Reading, we talked about, they did. Jade Moore came in. Brighton, I don't know. I'm going to come to you, Mia, I suppose, on this. The new manager, I don't know how well you know him or what you think, but they didn't really do much, and I expected them to do a bit more. So, Mia, I suppose, what do you think about the business the bottom of the league have done then?
I think Leicester has. I'm gonna have some courage here to say that I think Leicester has had one of the best windows among all teams.
100%.
I think because they have got the players they did target, most of them.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, Simpson and Courtney Nevin, obviously. And Courtney Nevin is a quality player. She will bring what they need into that back line, both defensively and with a good passing foot. Obviously, she's left-footed. So, and Mace, I mean, come on, they're gonna. I think these players, they are so hungry to play and to prove themselves, so they're gonna bring the level of quality up in Leicester. Brighton, I think, is one of the teams that look to have lost their identity in when they play. So obviously, I think Jens Scheuer, who is a German, I think he will come in with a lot of discipline in that squad, both training-wise and then game-wise. But I do think that they could be in trouble if Leicester hits another gear now. So I'm very keen on seeing what Leicester can do with these players.
Yeah.
Because I think I know that Willie Kirk spoke about the fact is that their fitness they had a plan to get the player more fit and ready to compete, and with their periodization they had, their plans was to bring that level up in when the league started again after the winter break.
Yeah, I've just seen this question. Mia, are you going to get him back on? Because he was adamant. Listen, I met him in the Euros and he was adamant too. And it's just, I don't know. I suppose, what's your thoughts, guys? It's funny.
I can have him back. It's no problem, I think. Yeah. But I do also think that he was telling us the truth in my podcast when he said that he wasn't aware of what was going to happen.
Willie Kirk, eh? No, guys. Emma, go on. I heard you saying 100% at Leicester. So I'm guessing, are you picking them as winning the window?
Oh, yeah. Well, I tweeted this in response. I think Farrell Williams asked who was best. And I said, Leicester, United and Villa. Those three best windows for me. Yeah, I think, and actually I'd probably put Leicester maybe just top of Villa, because I think the position that they're in, the business they've done is absolutely brilliant. I'm not even going to try and pronounce in front of Mia because I know that she'll get the name spot on and I won't. But the Bayern Munich goalkeeper they brought in, I think, is an unbelievable transfer. Obviously, Ruby Mace needs no introduction. She showed what she can do in a relegation battle when she was at Birmingham. So, and she's a number 6 for me, and I think that's where Leicester intend to play her. So, yeah, absolutely. I've been extremely impressed. And there's no way in my mind that Leicester are going down now. So I'm being bold there. I'd be concerned if I was Brighton, Reading, Liverpool, even Tottenham with Leicester's transfer window. I think Reading might be okay. They brought in Jade Moore. Still think they're missing a lot in terms of that attacking position. That could be where they fall down. Brighton, I don't know what's going on with Brighton, so I'd be very, very concerned if I was a Brighton fan. But yeah, Leicester for me, I can see them picking up points.
Yeah. Moyo, I mean, we've got 2 people celebrating Leicester's, and I do think it was good.
Leicester. I do think Leicester had a good window, a really good window. Reading didn't obviously do as much business as Leicester, but something about Reading, I don't know why I'm just never they're going to get relegated. There's something about their ability to grind out random, like, they're going to grind out a random like win against the big team. Like, I'm not going to lie, I thought it was going to be against United because they've got I feel like when they really lock in, they know how to frustrate teams. And I feel like the more they frustrate teams, the more teams start shooting from like, you'll be like 30 yards out banging shots for no reason because you're starting to become frustrated that you've not scored. And I feel like that's probably their best method of gaining points. Like, if they gain a point here and there from that, and then maybe just beat like one of the teams around them, I think they'll be fine. But Leicester getting the keeper is huge to win. So I feel like so many of the games they've lost have been due to this like it'll be a great goalkeeping goalkeeping performance, and then randomly, like near the end, it will just be like a calamity or something like that. And I feel like, if I remember correctly, like I think it was the Everton game, and it was right at the end of the game.
I was there,
and all I was thinking was like, Leicester had played well in that game, but certain moments are so crucial. So I feel like the people they've brought in have not only impacted in terms of like they've experienced bigger clubs than this. So like that in itself can be, I feel like it gives a lot of energy to the team, but also someone like Ruby Mace is going to be hungry to show what she can do. Obviously, we saw it before, as Emma said, at Birmingham City under Carla Ward. But like, I feel like she's someone that's got a lot of the like dog element that like Reading have, and I feel like she can bring that into that Leicester side. But yeah, I think Leicester had a really good window.
Leicester winning the window. Hey, I thought it was a Man United show. No, I'm only joking. I'm only joking. There's just one last question that I do want to ask, and I'll let everyone go, and I know I'm keeping you all, but it's one that's far up, and it's by El Don, and it's something that's going around. And what is the rule for homegrown players? Arsenal only have 6. Go on.
I have asked about this. Don't think because there isn't something out there that journalists aren't working. We have asked questions. There is questions being asked. So I think that's pretty much all I can say on that at the moment, because I don't really know. That's sort of why I'm asking the questions. Obviously, there's different rules. There was a new homegrown player quota that was brought in 2020. I've been scouring around to try and find out the absolute details, but please don't think we're ignoring that. I have asked questions, so if I get some information, then I'll obviously share that with everyone. But I am trying to find out a little bit more on that.
Yeah, well, that's good. There's two of you I know that are doing, because I know Rich Leverty is going for it as well and asking lots of questions about it, because I think he said the rule's 8, like, no matter your squad size, and it's not right if everyone else is adhering to it and one team isn't. And obviously we don't know what the punishment is, or if there is a punishment.
With the academy player registration, and something that I was reading up on today is that there might be a situation where you can actually register an academy player, but they actually not ever be named in a first team squad. So I'm just double checking on that at the moment. But yeah, and it's not just Arsenal. There was a couple of incidents last season where there were certainly teams who were on the brink of it. So yeah, I do think it is something that we're just trying to get a bit of clarity over.
Yeah. So we've said that, and there's the last question here I can see for Vicky, and we've said that Leicester are going to stay up. Yeah, Brighton, it's not looking good for them, so that's that. But this is the one that we all want. I know mine. I'm going to say it. I'll say it out loud. Chelsea, Man United. Arsenal, third. That's what I'll say. Emma?
Yeah, the top 3 is easy for me. And the order is more difficult, but for me, it's Chelsea, Arsenal, United. I think those 3 are top 3. I'd be very surprised if City finishing in the top 3. I do think Man United could win the league this year.
Oh, Jesus, don't. So,
I mean, I know.
Cancel the podcast.
It's so hard to look past Chelsea, but I do think this is the best chance that Man United will have for a while to win the league. So I'm going to say Man United are going to win it, and then Chelsea second, Arsenal third.
No, we'll cancel that bit. Don't worry. No. Moyo, what do you say? I say we can finish top 2. Listen, we're not winning the league. We don't talk about that. Yeah, we don't talk. Jinx.
We I think Chelsea are. I do think Chelsea are going to win the league. And then I'm not sure between Arsenal and something's telling me that Arsenal are still going to finish second, and that's just due to muscle memory, like just due to like they just know how to get it done. And I feel like the difference maker, and then United third. But yeah, I do think the difference maker in it is going to be the games against each other. I feel like all 3 teams. If we're gonna drop points, I feel like we're all gonna drop like maybe a point, like a couple points, as opposed to 3. And then it's gonna be games against each other, and that's the only reason I'm putting United third, because when I think about head-to-heads, United is the worst out of the lot. So yeah.
I think it'll come down to as well, not the 2 games that Arsenal and City have to play. That's where I think it'll come as well. Mia? Saved the best till last. What do you think the top 3?
Chelsea, United, Arsenal.
My girl, yeah. I'll be happy with that. I'll take third, but second is good. We don't talk about winning. We just do our business. But listen, girls, thank you so much.
But you are United, so you should be talking about winning.
We'll win the FA Cup. We'll win the FA Cup.
I've gone against my pre-season predictions, by the way. I said Chelsea, Arsenal, United as my top 3 before the season started. So I've put United from third to first. So
You've been impressed.
We're the big team. We're the big dogs. Listen, no, Chelsea away. That's where I think it'll come down to.
Mate,
if we take points there, boom. If we take, come back to me after that game. Yeah, we'll have another show after that game.
I think that game's going to be a rollercoaster. I'll be real. Like, I'm not gonna lie, I go into Chelsea games thinking, okay, written off, minus 6 points started the season. Like, that's how I go into Chelsea games. But yeah.
Let's see. Lisa could be back for them. Hey? Monster. That's what he called her. He called her a monster. So let's see. We're expecting big things, Lisa Knowles. Anyway, listen, thank you, girls. Do you want to shout yourself out, Emma? Is there any place that people should go listen to you? You know, thanks for coming on. Really appreciate it.
Well, no, thanks for having me on. Just have a look at BBC Sport website. Always on there. Do the odd bit of radio stuff, but yeah, I think we'll be here forever if I list it all. So just check out the website, guys.
Cool.
Thanks very much.
No worries. Moyo, anywhere that people should go if they want to catch more of you, ever see your Twitter, but anything else?
Gold Diggers UK on Twitter, Gold Diggers UK _ on Instagram. Like we do video posts on Instagram and then tweets on Twitter. Yeah, and then that's my Twitter handle. So yeah.
Go follow her. You'll love it. Mia, tell the people about their pitch and all that jazz. Go on.
Yeah, you can. If you want to read something in Swedish, you should go to fotbollskanalen.se or just listen to their pitch. We have some great episodes coming up.
Yeah.
With a lot of players. We did one with Everton, an Everton player today. Very good.
Oh, that's very nice. We've got the Swedish supporters club for Man United coming to Everton game. So there you go. That's the link. Yeah, we're globalers. Yeah. But thank you, everyone. Thanks, everyone, for watching. Drop a like on. Good show. I loved it. Thanks so much. Take care. Up the Reds.